Good evening, Fiji, and welcome to the first ever episode of The Chanel Show. I'm your host, Arnold Chanel. This month, we were treated to the amazing news that our very own University of the South Pacific was among the top 10% of universities around the world. The university released a statement from the controversial Palalualia congratulating themselves on this historic achievement. The Fijian media quickly followed, and boy did they want to celebrate with USP. Surely our news organizations looked very closely at these claims and delved deeper into the story, right? Turns out, not so much. We decided to look into the Times Higher Education World University Rankings for 2022 ourselves, and boy were we surprised at what we found. The University of the South Pacific was placed in the top 1200. USP's overall score? 23 out of 100. Wait, what? You're thinking just moments ago USP was celebrating this great historic achievement? But they scored 23 out of 100. If you or I got 23 out of 100 in any exam, in any school around the world, that would be considered a failure. It gets worse. With the results broken down, USP scored 16 out of 100 in teaching, 13 out of 100 in research, and 33 out of 100 in citations. The results are atrocious, whichever way you look at it. We spoke to Professor Palalualia, and here's what he said.
Let's look at all the universities that are above us. Rankings are always like this. This is, as you said, this is a very, and what you didn't talk about is that 20% of the methodology for the Times Higher Education is also based on 30% nearly, I think, 20 or 30%, on academic reputation that they do, where they canvass academics, about 20,000 academics around the world who are asked to rank universities, and nobody from your university can say how you rank, and nobody knows who they pick. It's done by random. They don't tell you who the 20,000 people are that they've contacted. They do that at random. So think about it this way. If it's so difficult to get into this ranking, you're not looking at it whether it's a 50% pass rate. Look at the university. Some of the universities who are in the top 400 might only have 15 or 16 in teaching. What this is telling you is how difficult the ranking is, and that this is it's not just like an exam paper where you're going to get an A, B, or C. This is a far more nuanced, more complex. And I think the key messages that I take out of that is, I think that there are two or three things. First, we're in the rankings. We're now in the system. There are probably 18,000 universities that aren't in the system because they haven't even registered the requisite research intensive measures that are required to get it. The message is USP has to work harder to get better, and that's why we'll continue to do that if we're going to remain where we are. The third message is, let's not detract that the Times Higher Education is saying, you might not like that we were in the 1,000 to 1,200 category. We're in the top 400 universities of the world for international outlook. Now, what does that tell us? It's not just because we're a regional university that we have international outlook. It's because of our staff. They're looking at our staff. I have been at 3 universities before USP where rankings are critical. Everybody's really looking for what the rankings are going to say. And that, by any standard, is a remarkable, remarkable result. It's to be ranked for that international outlook. It's because we have staff from so many countries. It's because our curricula is focused on the outside. Those are the things that count. That's what gives you that international outlook score. Then the second thing that they're saying is that we are amongst the top 500 universities in the world for industry income. Now, it's not like we can invent the criteria. We had to go and look at where our industry income is, as every other university does, right? So Arnold, let's get it right. Let's get it right, what this ranking is doing. And let's look at the results in a more nuanced way.
Actually, that's not quite correct. The International Outlook score is not based on curricula. According to the World University Rankings, International Outlook is measured by 3 indicators: international to domestic student ratio, international to domestic staff ratio, and the proportion of research that involves international collaboration. Furthermore, international outlook only accounts for 7.5% of the total score, while industry income only accounts for a tiny 2.5%. The fact remains that USP got worryingly low scores in all the key areas looked at by the World University Rankings, in particular teaching and research. According to the professor, we need to consider the context.
We are putting specific strategies in place to improve our performance. But I wouldn't say that a 16 out of 100 is a bad score, because you're not saying what the other scores are. We could curve this and say, well, actually, that translates to a very different score. It's all about how you present data.
Well, look, Professor, you can't say you performed well in international outlook and industry income and then ignore the other three when the other three are worth 90% of the overall score. And the overall score.
Let me ask you that question. Have I said that?
No, I'm responding to your last statement.
Have I said that? No, because you've just said that you can't say this. Have I said it?
Well, you said I can't say that, 16, you can't focus on the low scores. But what I'm saying is you can't focus on the high scores and not the low scores.
I'm saying look at the context. Look at the context. Look at the other universities and go and do an analysis of the scores. This is my job. I do it. So I know what I'm doing in terms of looking at that. And what I'm telling you is, look at the universities below us and look at the universities above us. Have a look at the data.
So we can talk about USP's International Outlook score and their Industry Outcome score, which again is worth only 10% of the overall. But mention the 16 out of 100 that they got in teaching, 13 in research and 33 in citations with a 23 out of 100 overall score, and they want us to consider the context? Now, it's important to note that the 200 universities above USP had low teaching scores too. Is that really a metric we want to use? Do we want to compare ourselves to other poor performing universities? After the break, is USP really among the top 10% of the world's universities? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't figured it out already, USP did not do well in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings 2022 and scored very low. Yet, for the last few weeks, you were being told by USP's communications team, politicians, and the media that we should all celebrate this historic moment. You would be forgiven for thinking that USP was rubbing shoulders with the Oxfords and the Harvards now. You're probably wondering why USP would go out of its way to create such big fanfare for not even placing in the top 1,000. Is perception and marketing more important than the students who are there to learn and who deserve a higher standard of education? Maybe this was a misleading marketing campaign to attract more students and donors. ABC first broke the news that perhaps the top 10% claim was way over the top. USP was upset because ABC did not contact them for a comment. So we gave USP a chance to explain their calculation and the method used behind the top 10% claim.
So the person in the ABC interview did not say that we were wrong in claiming, this is Phil Beatty, didn't say we were wrong in claiming this, because by doing so, he would have also completely rubbished the Times Higher Education ranking system, which I'm sure is not what his intention is. And because if he does that, then everybody else will abandon this ranking. But read his comments. He's simply advising that we should be cautious on how we do our proclamation. In essence, because nobody's really sure how many universities there are in the world. Some estimate say 30,000, some say 40,000. And if so, then how could USP say that it's in the top, say 7%? Because that's what the average would be. We're being cautious by using the UNESCO International Handbook of World Universities, which in its latest edition claims that there are 20,000 universities in the world. If I'd done that, we would have come in somewhere around the 6%. But what we did is we said we have to be cautious. We know what our limitations are. We know where we are. We know what we have to do. We know that this is a very big step for us to be ranked, but then we have to do a lot more work.
Wait a minute. According to the professor, USP was being cautious and used the UNESCO Handbook of World Universities, which has 20,000 universities. But using that logic, USP should have said they were in the top 6%, not the top 10%. It seems to me like somebody messed up the math. Let's play it again.
We're being cautious by using the UNESCO International Handbook of World Universities, which in its latest edition claims that there are 20,000 universities in the world. If I'd done that, we would have come in somewhere around the 6%. But what we did is we said we have to be cautious. We know what our limitations are. We know where we are. We know what we have to do. We know that this is a very big step for us to be ranked, but then we have to do a lot more work.
That is a strange explanation. It makes me wonder if USP thought about any of this at all. We used this method to calculate but didn't use the result of the 6% we got because we were being cautious? So they said 10% instead. Does that sound honest to you? Professor Aluwalia further went on to claim that Oxford on their website says that they are the #1 university in the world, and that gives USP the right to the 10% claim. Check it out.
Let us take that the first 10 universities that are listed in the Times Higher Education. Oxford University is listed #1, right? And assume that only 2,000 universities applied, because I think there's about 1,900 actually that applied. Now, can Oxford actually claim that it's #1 in the world? Mathematically, probably not. If we strictly take the argument that only 2,000 universities apply. Similarly, we can't claim that it's only 10% in the world from this perspective. And other universities can't claim this in this manner. This is, in essence, the argument of the Times Higher Education in the ABC report. But now let's go to the Oxford website, and there it proclaims that Oxford was ranked first in the world in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings for 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Now, if we apply that same logic in the ABC report, then Oxford University is lying. When universities claim their ranking in the world is in the world, first they're adopting the underlying idea that I've been trying to explain. In other words, that every university in the world is given the opportunity to be ranked and measured against other universities by an acceptable ranking system. Now, in reality, not all universities can apply because, as I've explained to you, Arnold, there are very stringent conditions which you have to fulfill to even become eligible for ranking. That is why only certain universities can apply. But this does not take away the fact that all universities in the world have the chance to apply. So based on this mathematical chance, and you have to remember that Professor Vanawalai is a mathematician. So based on this mathematical chance that all universities have that opportunity, Oxford can rightfully claim that it's #1 in the world. So this is how we can also rightly proclaim that we are in the 10% of the world.
We looked at Oxford's website and they clearly say Oxford has been named the world's #1 university for the 4th successive year in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. In the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. Oxford, by the way, is also #1 in multiple rankings. The Time Higher Education World University Rankings own Phil Betty spoke to us and said this.
So a long way of saying it's probably not strictly true, a slightly exaggerated or slightly, a bit over-enthusiastic to say top 10% of the world.
The Times Higher Education World University Rankings own Phil Betty just told us that what USP has been claiming for the last few weeks is false. Hear it again.
A long way of saying it's probably not strictly true, a slightly exaggerated or slightly, a bit over-enthusiastic to say top 10% of the world.
Not true, not correct. That is directly from the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. Think about that. Not from the media or politicians, but from the Times Higher Education World University Rankings itself. Yet, everybody seems to have missed it. Could there be something even more sinister going on? Was this perhaps a deliberate attempt by USP to manipulate public sentiment and divert attention away from the Fijian government's demand for an independent investigation and accountability of the millions of dollars of Fijian taxpayer funding that goes into the university? More after the break.
Oxford can rightfully claim that it's number one in the world. So this is how we can also rightly proclaim that we're in the 10% of the world.
It's probably not strictly true, a slightly exaggerated or slightly, a bit over enthusiastic.
Welcome back. We learned that USP scored and placed fairly low in the world university rankings. We learned that USP are not in the top 10% of universities in the world. That's what we've learned so far. They misled current and future students and parents who need accurate information to make an informed decision about their children's future. Another important point that Phil Batty made was that in Britain, the Advertising Standards Authority held up some universities who made similar claims to USP. The Consumer Council of Fiji also told USP to refrain from making such misleading statements. Their statement read, "The Consumer Council of Fiji is urging universities to refrain from making statements which are incorrect or likely to create a false impression. This is after University of the South Pacific earlier this week claimed that it has been ranked in the top 10% of universities in the world." While the council recognizes and congratulates USP for attaining a ranking in the Times Higher Education ranking, the Consumer Council of Fiji Chief Executive Officer Seema Shandil says that USP's claim of being in the top 10% of universities in the world is misleading and overstretched at best. USP should exercise greater diligence when making such statements as it impacts a lot of stakeholders in the region, including its current and potential students, the consumers of USP's services, said Ms. Shandil. There are over 25,000 universities globally, and out of which less than 2,000 were part of the ranking. This entails that approximately 8% of universities were part of the survey which was used for the ranking. Hence, to say that USP is among the top 10% of universities in the world is an exaggeration. The Council is also concerned with USP's claim that it is part of an exclusive club of universities. Ms. Shandil says that any organization which charges consumers for products and services are essentially engaging in unethical practices by making such unsubstantiated claims of exclusivity, as it is seen as a marketing tactic to lure consumers, who are potential students in this case. Professor Aluwalia won't comment until the Consumer Council contacts him directly. Check it out.
We'll only respond when they write to me directly.
Okay.
And our team will respond to them appropriately, as that's the right way. I'm not going to say things about the FCCC or about the Consumers Council until I know the full context. I'm sorry, Arnold, I can't do that.
Education is critical to both parents and students, and misleading with this kind of manipulation and withholding key information robs them of the opportunity to make an informed decision about their future. Will Fiji's consumer protection bodies act? Will there be an investigation? You can rest assured that we will ask them, but only time will tell. Let's look at some media coverage. How did the Fijian media fail so badly? Isn't it a journalist's job to research and verify information they are given? Not a single media outlet was able to pick out that USP scored 23 out of 100 overall, 16 out of 100 in teaching, and 13 out of 100 in research. USP literally failed in 3 critical areas required in a higher learning institution, and not a single media article expressing concern was published. Nobody questioned the top 10% until ABC broke the story. Are you telling me that not a single journalist went to the actual website to look at the rankings and simply published whatever was sent to them? Isn't doing research and verifying information the main component of being a journalist? Are they going to say that the media environment is restrictive? Were they self-censoring maybe? Sadly, we see this time and time again, and nobody seems to call the media out. Millions of Fijian taxpayer dollars are on the line. Decisions by students and parents that impact their future are being made, and misinformation like this can do a lot of harm. It doesn't matter where your politics lie. This is a national issue and will impact every single one of us, and we should all be concerned. Politicizing education only serves to hurt our children. Thank you for watching, and I hope that some light was shed on this critical issue for our viewers. Many will be unhappy with the revelations tonight, but we will continue to look deeper and bring you the truth. Until next week, thank you and good night.